All my life, Lily was my sister. But the moment Alexander Davies walked into ours, she became my rival. Hi guys, please before we start, kindly subscribe to help the channel grow. Nora King stood before the tall windows of their father's mansion, staring out at the city that glittered like a crown under the night sky. The King estate was legendary in its own right. Marble floors that gleamed like mirrors, chandeliers that sparkled like falling stars, and a lineage of wealth that weighed heavy on every step they took. But tonight, the mansion didn't feel like home. It felt like a stage. And on that stage, Nora and Lily were the unwilling actresses, bound by blood, yet divided by something far darker: envy. Lily swept into the room like she owned it. Her red dress clung to her curves, her heels clicking like tiny declarations of war with each step. She was beautiful, breathtaking even. Nora had always known that, but her beauty came laced with a certain venom, the kind that sought not admiration but victory. "You look nervous," Lily said, tilting her head with a smirk. "Don't tell me you're intimidated. It's just dinner." "Dinner with Alexander Davies isn't just dinner," Nora replied softly, adjusting her pearl necklace. Her heart beat harder than she wanted to admit. "He's not like the others father brings around." Lily's lips curled into a sharp smile. "And that's exactly why he won't look at you." Nora swallowed back a retort, but the words stung. This was Lily's way, always reminding her who the world supposedly favored. Growing up, Lily had been the golden child, the one teachers praised, the one boys chased. Nora was a shadow, the soft voice drowned out by Lily's confident laughter. But tonight felt different. Tonight, the air was thick with something unspoken, something dangerous. The double doors opened, and every head turned. Alexander Davies walked in. He wasn't merely handsome. He was the kind of man who silenced rooms without trying. Tall, broad-shouldered, his tailored suit hugged him like it had been sewn directly onto his body. His dark hair was swept back with precision, his jawline sharp as cut glass, and his eyes deep gray, carrying the weight of power and secrets. Father rose from his chair instantly, grinning. "Ah, Alexander, welcome, welcome. The King family is honored." Nora's breath caught as Alexander's gaze swept the room. When it landed on her, just for a heartbeat, it felt like the chandeliers above dimmed, leaving only the two of them. His eyes lingered, curious. But then Lily moved. Always quick, always bold. She was already at Alexander's side, her hand brushing his arm as if she belonged there. "Mr. Davies," she purred, her voice dripping with charm. "You'll find our family unforgettable." Nora sat frozen, heat rising in her chest. It was starting. She could feel it. The war neither of them would admit to, the rivalry that had always simmered in silence, now poised to erupt. Dinner was a blur of laughter, conversation, and carefully crafted impressions. Father boasted about business empires. Lily flirted openly, and Nora tried to hold her ground with grace. Every time Alexander asked her a question, Lily cut in with a louder answer. Every time Alexander's eyes softened toward Nora, Lily found a way to claim his attention back. By the time dessert was served, Nora understood one thing clearly. This wasn't just about dinner. This was about dominance. And in Lily's eyes, there was no room for two queens. Later that night, as Nora undressed in her room, she replayed Alexander's gaze in her mind. The way he had looked at her, even if briefly, hadn't been the gaze of a man charmed by Lily's fire. It was something quieter, something searching. But she knew Lily had seen it too. And if there was one thing her sister hated more than being ignored, it was losing. Nora leaned against her mirror, whispering to her reflection, "She won't let me have him. Not without a fight." And somewhere down the hall, Lily stood before her own mirror, painting her lips blood red as she whispered, "If she thinks she can win, she's a fool." Two sisters, one billionaire, and a rivalry that had only just begun. The King mansion was quiet the next morning, but silence in that house was never peace. It was the silence of tension, the kind that stretched thin, waiting for the slightest word to snap it apart. Nora descended the grand staircase, the soft rustle of her silk robe the only sound. She could still feel the heaviness of last night's dinner, The intensity of Alexander's eyes, the weight of Lily's laughter cutting across every word she tried to speak. Her heart was torn between the spark she had felt and the dread that came with knowing Lily had noticed it too. She entered the breakfast room, only to find Lily already there, perched gracefully at the table with a steaming cup of coffee. The morning sun poured in through the tall windows, casting Lily in golden light, as though the world itself conspired to make her glow. "You're up early," Nora said cautiously, pouring herself tea. "I could say the same about you," Lily replied, her tone light, but her eyes sharp. She sipped her coffee before adding casually, "I suppose you were dreaming about him." Nora stiffened. "Don't start, Lily." "Start what?" Lily's smirk widened. "I saw the way you looked at Alexander. The way you blushed when he asked you about your art." "Oh, dear sister, it was adorable, naive but adorable." Nora set her cup down carefully, refusing to rise to the bait. "I wasn't the only one looking at him. In fact, I'd say you hardly looked away." "Of course I didn't," Lily said, leaning back in her chair unbothered. "Men like Alexander Davies don't come around often. Wealthy, powerful, handsome. He deserves a woman who knows how to handle him, not one who hides behind polite smiles and timid words." Her words hit their mark. Nora lowered her gaze, fighting the sting. "It was always like this," Lily twisting her insecurities, turning them into knives. But beneath Lily's arrogance, Nora noticed something else. A desperation, an edge of envy that she rarely allowed to show. Because while Lily was bold and brazen, she had also seen the flicker in Alexander's gaze. The flicker that hadn't been for her, but for Nora. Lily knew it, and Lily hated it. That afternoon, Father called both sisters into his study. Christopher King was a man of presence, gray hair slicked back, his tailored suit never wrinkled, his words always carrying the weight of command. "Alexander Davies is a man of stature," Father said, his voice low and deliberate. "His interest in this family could mean opportunities, connections that will secure our legacy for generations." Nora and Lily exchanged a glance. "I trust you both understand the importance of making a good impression," Father continued, his eyes settling briefly on Nora before turning to Lily. "Davies isn't the kind of man swayed by beauty alone. He values intelligence, class, and loyalty." Lily's jaw tightened, but her smile never wavered. "Of course, Father. I intend to show him exactly why a king woman is worth his attention." Father nodded approvingly. "Good. There's a gala this weekend. The Davies family will be in attendance. You'll both be there, and I expect you to conduct yourselves with dignity." Dismissed, the sisters stepped out of the study. Lily walked ahead, her heels clicking against the marble. "Dignity," she muttered with a laugh. "As if he doesn't know that's my specialty." Nora followed silently, her thoughts whirling. A gala meant an opportunity, one that Lily would no doubt seize with claws sharpened. But maybe, just maybe, it could also be her chance to show Alexander that she wasn't just the quiet sister in Lily's shadow. The days leading up to the gala were a battlefield disguised as preparation. Nora spent her hours in the garden, painting, trying to steady her nerves. Alexander's question from dinner echoed in her mind. What inspires your art? The way he had asked it, genuinely curious, as though her answer mattered. It had felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. Lily, on the other hand, orchestrated her appearance like a queen preparing for coronation. Dresses were tried and discarded, jewelry selected, hair styled and restyled. She spoke often, loudly, of Alexander's wealth, of the grand estates he owned, the power he commanded. "He'll choose me," she declared one evening as she stood before her mirror in a shimmering gown. Nora had paused in the doorway, caught between admiration and dread. Lily turned, her eyes locking onto her sister's reflection. "You do realize that, don't you? Men like him want women who burn bright, not women who fade quietly into the background." Nora said nothing. She had learned long ago that arguing with Lily only fed the fire. But in her heart, she knew a truth Lily couldn't accept. Alexander hadn't looked at her like she was background. He had looked at her like she was a mystery he wanted to solve. The night of the gala arrived. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and gold-trimmed walls, the air humming with music and laughter. Powerful men and elegant women filled the space, each conversation a careful dance of wealth and ambition. The king's sisters entered together, but as always, it felt like a competition. Nora wore a simple but elegant gown of midnight blue, her hair swept up in soft curls. She looked graceful, understated, but radiant in her own way. Lily, by contrast, wore crimson silk that clung like flame, her diamonds catching every flicker of light. And then, there he was, Alexander Davies, surrounded by businessmen and politicians, yet standing apart. His eyes scanned the room, sharp and calculating, until they landed on the sisters. A faint smile touched his lips. Nora's breath caught. Lily's eyes narrowed. As they approached, Lily surged forward, placing herself directly in Alexander's line of sight. "Mr. Davies," she greeted warmly, her hand brushing his arm as though it belonged there. Alexander smiled politely, but his gaze shifted over Lily's shoulder onto Nora. "Miss King," he said, his voice deep and smooth. "You look lovely tonight." It was just one word. Lovely. But spoken in front of Lily, it was enough. Nora felt her cheeks warm. Lily's smile didn't falter, but her grip on Alexander's arm tightened slightly. And in that moment, beneath the glittering chandeliers and the music of violins, the seeds of envy took root and began to grow. The gala was a storm hidden beneath crystal chandeliers. The music flowed, champagne sparkled, and the city's wealthiest laughed as if their lives were nothing but perfection. But in the midst of it all, Nora could feel the storm inside her, whispers of envy, flickers of hope, the fragile weight of Alexander's gaze. "Dance with me." Lily's voice cut through the music like a blade. Alexander looked down at her, then across the room at Nora, who stood hesitantly near the fountain's centerpiece, clutching her glass. For a moment, it seemed he might refuse, but Alexander was a man of diplomacy. He inclined his head. Of course. Lily's triumph was instantaneous. She slipped her hand into his, her crimson gown swirling as he led her to the dance floor. They moved elegantly, two figures drawing every eye in the room. Lily tilted her head back, her laughter spilling like wine, her hand daringly close to his chest. She wanted the world to see, wanted Nora to see, that she was the one at Alexander's side. But Nora's heart refused to break. Instead, it burned. Watching them, she realized this wasn't just about a dance. This was a declaration. "Why are you standing here like a shadow?" Hazel Powell's voice startled her. Nora turned to find her childhood friend at her side, her hazel eyes sharp with concern. "If you want him, Nora, you'll have to fight. Lily won't play fair." Nora swallowed hard. "That's not who I am. I can't." "You can," Hazel interrupted, squeezing her hand. "Because if you don't, Lily will destroy you." The music swelled, and as if summoned, Alexander's eyes lifted from Lily and found Nora again. This time, his gaze lingered longer, questioning, searching, and when the song ended, he didn't lead Lily back to her seat. He crossed the floor, directly toward Nora. Lily's smile froze. "Miss King," Alexander said smoothly, offering his hand to Nora. "May I?" For a heartbeat, the world stopped. Nora hesitated, her pulse roaring in her ears. Then she placed her hand in his, the warmth of his touch sending a shiver through her. The dance began. Unlike Lily, Nora didn't dazzle with boldness. She moved softly, gracefully, her steps light as if the music flowed through her. And Alexander, powerful and composed, matched her perfectly. Their eyes locked, unspoken words passing between them. "You don't like these events," Alexander said quietly. Nora blinked. "How do you know?" His lips curved faintly. "Because you look like you'd rather be anywhere else, but you came anyway. That tells me you value family more than your own comfort." Her breath caught. No one had ever seen her that way, not even Lily. Across the ballroom, Lily's nails dug into her champagne glass. She had never been ignored, never overlooked. Yet here was Alexander Davies, the man she had already claimed in her mind, looking at her sister as if she were the only woman in the room. The moment the dance ended, Lily was there. "Alexander, there's someone I'd like you to meet," she said quickly, sliding between them. Her hand clamped onto his arm, her smile dazzling. Nora stepped back, her chest aching. Alexander hesitated, his eyes lingering on her before he allowed Lily to lead him away. Later that night, back at the mansion, the sisters' war spilled into the open. "You embarrassed yourself," Lily snapped as she tore off her earrings, clinging to him like some desperate little girl. "I didn't cling," Nora said evenly, though her hands trembled as she unfastened her necklace. "He asked me to dance." Lily spun on her, eyes blazing. "Because he felt sorry for you." "Don't fool yourself, Nora. Men like Alexander don't choose women like you. They choose women like me." Nora's voice shook, but she forced the words out. "Then why did he look at me the way he did?" The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Lily's face tightened, her fury unmasked. For the first time, Nora realized her sister wasn't just cruel, she was afraid. "You'll regret crossing me," Lily whispered, her voice low and venomous. "I won't let you take him from me." Nora stood her ground, though her heart raced. "I'm not taking him, but if he chooses me, that's not something you can control." Lily's laugh was cold, chilling. "Oh, sweet sister, you don't understand, do you? Everything is something I can control." She swept out of the room, her perfume lingering like smoke after fire. Nora sank on her bed, her chest heaving. For years she had endured Lily's sharp tongue, her need to dominate every space. But this was different. This wasn't about clothes, or friends, or even father's approval. This was about Alexander Davies. And Lily had declared war. The King Mansion no longer felt like home. It felt like a battlefield. After the gala, whispers spread quickly through the city's elite circles. The King's sisters had danced with Alexander Davies, but one had captured his attention in a way no one expected. It was Nora, the quiet one, the shadow Lily had always kept at bay. And society adored a good scandal. Lily could feel the narrative slipping, and she refused to let it. She moved swiftly. The morning after the gala, she arranged a brunch at the Rosewood Hotel with Stella Young, a notorious socialite who thrived on gossip like oxygen. "You must have seen it," Lily said smoothly, stirring her cappuccino. "Poor Nora, trying so hard to keep up. She's fragile. Sweet, but fragile. I worry for her, honestly." Stella leaned forward, intrigued. "Fragile how?" Lily lowered her voice, feigning concern. "She's always been sensitive, a little unstable. Painting the garden for hours, talking to herself sometimes. I'm afraid Alexander might mistake her softness for strength." She sighed, shaking her head. "It would break my heart to see him burdened." By the next evening, whispers began to circulate. "Nora King is delicate, too delicate for a man like Davies." Nora first sensed it at a luncheon with Hazel. Women who once greeted her with polite smiles now gave her pitying looks. One even asked softly, "Are you feeling better, dear? You seemed a little off lately." Confused, Nora forced a smile, but her heart sank. Something was wrong. Later, she confided in Hazel. "They're looking at me like I'm fragile, like I'm broken. I don't understand." Hazel's eyes narrowed. "Lily, this has her fingerprints all over it." Nora's hands trembled. "Why would she do this?" Hazel gave a dry laugh. "Because she knows Alexander is watching you. And if she can't shine brighter, she'll dim your light instead." That evening, Alexander called. "Nora." His voice came through warm, steady, yet tinged with something she couldn't place. "May I take you to dinner tomorrow?" Her heart fluttered. "I'd love that." But the next day, as she dressed, a sudden doubt gnawed at her. What if the rumors had reached him too? What if Lily had already poisoned his view of her? When she arrived at the restaurant, the glances from others confirmed her fear. Whispers followed her as she walked to the table where Alexander waited. He rose instantly, pulling her chair out with a courtesy that made her chest ache. "You look lovely," he said, his eyes steady on hers. "Thank you," she whispered, trying to smile. But as the meal progressed, she caught the flicker in his gaze. Questions he didn't ask but perhaps wanted to. Finally, she forced herself to speak. "You've heard things, haven't you?" she said softly. Alexander leaned back, studying her. "People talk, Nora. They always will. But I prefer to make my own judgments." Her breath hitched. "And what do you see?" A long silence stretched between them. Then Alexander leaned forward, his voice low, intimate. "I see a woman who doesn't realize her own strength." The words steadied her like an anchor. Yet across the city, Lily was already plotting her next move. Back at the mansion, Lily stormed into her room, slamming the door. She had heard Alexander had taken Nora to dinner, and the news burned her like acid. In front of her mirror, she stared at her reflection, her eyes cold, her beauty sharp and cruel. "If he won't see me willingly," she whispered, "then I'll make sure he has no choice." She opened her drawer, pulling out her phone. Her fingers flew across the screen as she typed a message, sweet, seemingly innocent, but designed to wound. Within minutes, a rumor began to ripple through their circle. Nora King is using her father's influence to trap Alexander Davies into marriage. The next morning, the headlines followed. Nora's stomach dropped when she saw the newspaper at the breakfast table. Heiress Nora King's desperate bid for Davies' fortune. Her hand shook as she read the words, bile rising in her throat. Across the table, Lily sipped her coffee, her expression the perfect mask of sympathy. "Oh, Nora," she said softly, "you know how cruel the press can be." Nora's eyes burned with tears, but beneath the pain, something hardened. She looked at her sister, the sister she had loved, defended, endured, and for the first time, she saw not family, but an enemy. And enemies had to be faced. That night, Nora stood by her window, staring at the city lights. Hazel's words echoed in her mind. "If you don't fight, Lily will destroy you." Her reflection stared back at her in the glass, eyes fierce with something new. "Then I'll fight," she whispered. "For Alexander. For myself." In the shadows of the hallway, Lily listened. A cold smile curved her lips. "Then let's see who wins." Nora could still feel the weight of her sister's words days after their confrontation. Lily had always been sharp, but now her cruelty carried a new venom, fueled by desperation and jealousy. Their home had become a battlefield of silence and stares. At breakfast, Lily's smile never reached her eyes, and every compliment she offered Nora felt dipped in poison. But things shifted when Alexander invited them both to his private estate on the coast. He claimed it was a weekend of leisure, a chance to escape the noise of the city, but Nora suspected there was more to it. She almost refused, but when Hazel reminded her that walking away now meant surrendering everything to Lily without a fight, she forced herself to go. The estate was unlike anything Nora had seen before. Sprawling gardens stretched out to the cliffs, where the ocean roared endlessly. The mansion itself glowed with golden stone, a place that seemed carved out of time and power. From the moment they arrived, Lily behaved like she already belonged there. She clung to Alexander's arm, laughed at his every word, and announced her opinions as though she were mistress of the house. Nora kept her distance, wandering through the gardens where marble statues stood like silent witnesses. She didn't realize Alexander was watching her until he spoke. "You prefer solitude," he said, joining her by a fountain. "It's quieter," Nora replied, brushing her fingers against the water's surface. "Quiet doesn't mean weak," he said softly. "I see strength in restraint, Miss King." Her heart stirred at his words, but before she could respond, Lily appeared. Her eyes narrowed at the sight of them alone together, and her voice rang with false sweetness. "Nora, dear, why don't you let Alexander show me the vineyard? I'm sure he'd rather spend his time with someone who appreciates fine wine." Alexander's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but he offered his arm anyway. Of course. Nora watched them go, her chest aching. But later that evening, when the guests gathered for dinner, Alexander made a deliberate choice. He seated Nora beside him, leaving Lily fuming on the opposite side of the table. Throughout the meal, he drew Nora into conversation, asking her about her views, her interests, her dreams. For once, Nora's voice carried, and the others listened. Lily's smile became brittle. She raised her glass in a toast that sounded more like a warning. "To family, the people who know us best and hurt us worst." The room shifted uncomfortably, but Nora met her sister's gaze without flinching. Later that night, a storm broke over the estate. Rain hammered against the windows, and thunder rolled through the cliffs. Nora couldn't sleep. She wandered down the long halls, her bare feet whispering against the marble floors, until she found herself in the library. The scent of leather and old wood wrapped around her, comforting and timeless. Alexander was there too, standing by the fire with a glass of whiskey. He looked up as she entered, and for a moment, they simply stared at each other, the storm raging outside while something quieter but more dangerous stirred within. "You shouldn't be wandering alone," he said, his voice low. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted. "Too many thoughts." He set down his glass and moved closer. "What thoughts?" She hesitated, then whispered, "That I don't belong in your world." His gaze softened, but his words were steady. "You belong wherever you choose to stand, Nora." Her breath caught as he reached for her hand. The firelight flickered across his face, and in that fragile, breathless moment, it felt like the world narrowed to just them. But then the library door slammed open. Lily stood there, her eyes blazing with fury, her lips pressed into a thin line. For a heartbeat, the storm outside seemed to echo the one in her. She took in the sight of their joined hands, of Alexander leaning close, and her composure cracked. "So this is how it is," she spat. "My own sister creeping into the night to steal what's mine." Nora tried to speak, but Lily's rage drowned out her words. She turned to Alexander, her voice trembling with anger. "You think she's innocent? You think she's pure? She's been playing you, Alexander. She's jealous, she's manipulative, and she'll ruin you just to spite me." Alexander's face hardened, though his grip on Nora's hand didn't loosen. "Enough, Lily." But Lily wasn't done. Her voice rose, sharp and desperate. "If you choose her, you'll regret it. She'll never give you the world I can. She doesn't deserve you." "I do." The silence that followed was deafening. The storm pounded against the windows, the fire crackled, and Nora's heart hammered as she waited for Alexander's response. He looked at Lily, then at Nora, and his voice was steady, resolute. "Lily, you mistake possession for love. And Nora, she doesn't need to fight for my attention. She already has it." Lily's face twisted with fury and hurt, a dangerous mixture that promised this battle was far from over. She spun on her heel and stormed out, her heels clicking like gunfire against the marble. Nora's chest rose and fell as she turned to Alexander. "You shouldn't have said that." "I only speak the truth," he replied. And as thunder roared, Nora realized her sister had just reached her breaking point. Whatever came next would be war. The storm that night had passed, but inside the King household, another storm was gathering, one that brewed quietly behind Lily's calculating eyes. She had lost her temper at Alexander's estate, and that slip haunted her. Rage was useful in private, but in public it was weakness, and Lily King had never tolerated weakness. She needed a plan, something flawless, something that would not only ruin Nora, but make Alexander see her sister for what Lily swore she truly was. At breakfast the next morning, Lily played her part perfectly. She smiled at Nora as if nothing had happened, laughed softly at father's jokes, and complimented Maria on her hair. Nora, still shaken by the confrontation in the library, studied her warily. She knew Lily well enough to recognize this piece as a mask. Alexander sent flowers to the house that day, a bouquet of rare white orchids with a handwritten note tucked inside. Nora's fingers trembled as she read his words, simple but sincere, "Thinking of you." She tucked the card away before Lily could see, but her sister was already watching, her eyes flicking from the blooms to Nora's flushed face. That night, Lily began weaving her web. She sought out Stella Cole, a known gossip with a talent for twisting truths, and whispered carefully crafted lies into her ear. "I shouldn't say anything," Lily murmured, her voice laced with feigned reluctance, "but I worry for Alexander. Nora has been reckless. She isn't as sweet as she pretends. You didn't hear this from me, of course." Stella's eyes widened, greedy for scandal, and Lily smiled inwardly. Soon the whispers would spread like smoke through silk. But gossip wasn't enough. Lily wanted Nora to fall, not stumble. So she set her sights on Alexander's business world, where reputation was everything. She arranged a meeting with Henry Powell, a family acquaintance with a reputation for ruthlessness, and planted the idea that Nora had loose lips. She mentioned something at dinner. Lily said smoothly, sipping her wine, something about Alexander's investment plans. I don't know how much she truly knows, but she's careless with what she hears. If she isn't careful, it could be disastrous for him. Henry raised a brow. And you're certain? Lily leaned forward, her smile slow and deliberate. I only want to protect Alexander. He trusts her too much. By the end of the week, the first hints of Lily's sabotage began to surface. Nora noticed the shift in people's gazes, the subtle wariness in conversations. Even Hazel seemed uncertain, hesitating when Nora spoke of Alexander. Then came the cruelest blow. A rumor published in a society column suggesting Nora was using her relationship with Alexander to secure financial leverage for her family. Nora found the paper on her desk, her hands going cold as she read the headline. Her name, dragged through the mud for all the city to see. She stormed into Lily's room, fury blazing through her calm nature. "Did you do this?" she demanded, holding up the article. Lily looked up from her vanity mirror, feigning innocence. "Oh, Nora, you really think the world revolves around you? Not everything is about us." "Don't lie to me," Nora hissed. "I know you started this." Lily stood, her expression softening into mock sympathy. "You think Alexander cares about an article? He'll see the truth soon enough, that you're not built for his world. You'll make a mistake, you'll embarrass yourself, and when you do, I'll be there to pick up the pieces." Nora's hand shook with anger. "You're not protecting him, Lily. You're destroying him. And I'll save him afterward," Lily whispered, her smile cruel. "That's what makes me the better choice." Later that evening, at a dinner hosted by the Evans family, the sabotage bloomed in full force. Nora was seated beside Alexander, her nerves strung tight. Conversation turned to his company's upcoming expansion, and someone casually mentioned a detail that Nora recognized, one she had only heard in passing from Alexander himself. Heads turned toward her, curious, suspicious. Alexander's brows furrowed. "Who told you that?" The man hesitated. "It was mentioned somewhere. I thought Nora brought it up." Nora's blood ran cold. "I didn't. I never." But the doubt had been planted. She saw it flicker in Alexander's eyes, the shadow of mistrust. Not certainty, not yet, but enough to hurt. Enough to remind her that Lily was winning this war not by screaming, but by whispering. After dinner, Alexander walked her to her car. His voice was low, measured. "You know people are talking." Nora's throat tightened. "You don't believe them, do you?" His gaze softened, but he didn't answer right away. That pause, that hesitation, was worse than any accusation. Finally, he said, "I want to believe you, Nora, but I need to be careful. My world is full of people who would use anything against me." Tears burned behind her eyes, but she held them back. "I would never hurt you, Alexander." "I hope not," he said quietly. Then he kissed her hand and left her standing in the cold night air, her heart breaking under the weight of his doubt. From the shadows across the street, Lily watched. She smiled to herself, her red lips curving like a blade. The first fracture had appeared between Nora and Alexander, and with one final push, she would make it shatter. The rumors were bad enough, but Nora had learned to live with whispers. What she wasn't prepared for was the sting of betrayal delivered under the glow of chandeliers and the eyes of high society. The charity gala that week was one of the season's most important events. It was hosted at the Lewis family's Grand Hall, a place lined with marble pillars and filled with the city's most influential. Nora almost didn't go, her heart still raw from Alexander's hesitation, but Hazel convinced her. "If you don't show your face, you'll let Lily win," her friend urged. So Nora dressed in midnight blue silk, her hair swept elegantly from her face, and forced herself to walk into the hall with her chin high. From across the room, she saw Lily dazzling as always, her golden gown catching every shimmer of light, her laughter ringing too loudly. Alexander arrived shortly after, commanding the room with his quiet authority. When his eyes found Nora's, something unreadable passed through them. He moved toward her, but Lily intercepted, slipping her hand through his arm as though she belonged there. Nora's chest tightened, but she stood her ground, greeting others with grace. Then came the moment Lily had been waiting for. Toward the end of the evening, as champagne glasses clinked and the orchestra swelled, a hush spread through the crowd. A projector flickered on, casting light against the tall wall at the center of the hall. The screen lit up with a series of photographs. Nora, caught in candid shots that twisted innocent moments into damning evidence. One showed her stepping out of Alexander's office late at night. Another, cropped cruelly, made it look as though she was exchanging envelopes with one of his business rivals. The murmurs rose like a tide. "Who released this?" someone gasped. "It looks like she's selling information. Alexander's been compromised." Nora froze, horror coursing through her. Her gaze darted to Lily, who stood at the edge of the crowd, her smile soft and satisfied, like an artist admiring her work. Alexander's face was unreadable as he studied the images. The silence pressed down until it became unbearable. Finally, he turned to Nora. "Is this true?" His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a blade. "No." Nora's voice cracked with desperation. "Alexander, you know me. I would never betray you. Those pictures, someone twisted them. It's not what it looks like." The crowd whispered, eyes flicking between them like spectators at a duel. Lily stepped forward, her tone dripping with feigned sorrow. "Nora, please, if you've made mistakes, just admit it. Don't drag Alexander down with you." Nora's chest heaved, fury blazing. "You did this. You set me up." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Lily pressed a hand to her chest, her eyes wide with mock hurt. "How could you say that? I'm your sister. I only want to protect you." Alexander's jaw tightened. He looked from Lily to Nora, his silence louder than any accusation. Finally, he spoke, his words heavy. "I don't know what to believe." The orchestra faltered, the room spinning with whispers, and in that instant Nora felt the floor give way beneath her. She fled the hall, tears stinging her eyes, her gown sweeping behind her like a broken promise. Outside, the night air hit her lungs like ice. She pressed against the stone wall, gasping, her heart in shreds. Hazel ran after her, gripping her shoulders. "You can't let this break you, Nora. Everyone saw Lily's hand in this, even if they don't admit it now." Nora shook her head. "Alexander doubts me." That's all Lily needed. Back inside, Lily basked in her triumph. She leaned close to Alexander, her voice a velvet whisper. "You see now? I warned you about her. She's not what you think." But for the first time, Alexander didn't immediately nod. His gaze lingered on the doors Nora had fled through, his mind troubled. The seed of doubt Lily planted had blossomed, yes, but beneath it, something else stirred, something stronger. And Lily, blinded by victory, didn't see that Alexander's silence wasn't surrender. It was calculation. The photographs from the gala lingered in Alexander's mind long after the last guest had left. He replayed them over and over, the whispers of the crowd echoing in his ears. He had built his empire on precision, on reading people, on never allowing lies to slip past him unnoticed. And yet, staring into Nora's tearful eyes, he hadn't seen deceit. He had seen desperation, pain, truth. That alone unsettled him. Back in his penthouse that night, he poured himself a glass of scotch but barely touched it. His instincts told him something about the scandal didn't fit. The photographs were too clean, too perfectly timed, too convenient. They didn't look like chance. They looked orchestrated. Alexander called in Daniel Young, his most trusted aide, a man whose loyalty had been proven time and again. "I want you to dig," Alexander ordered, his voice cold and sharp. "Those photos at the gala, find the source. Who sent them? Who paid for them? Leave no stone unturned." Daniel nodded. "And Miss King?" Alexander hesitated, Nora's broken expression flashing before him. "She stays untouched. No one harasses her. Do you understand?" The investigation began quietly. Daniel traced the photographs to an anonymous submission, funneled through layers of intermediaries. But money always left trails, and within days, the path began to clear. A small payment, routed through a shell company, led back to someone in their circle. Not Nora, not Hazel, someone closer. Meanwhile, Nora withdrew. After the gala, she could hardly face society. Invitations went unanswered. She spent hours walking through the gardens, her thoughts heavy, her heart aching. Hazel tried to comfort her, but Nora's words carried defeat. It doesn't matter if I'm innocent. Once people doubt you, it doesn't leave. But Alexander didn't stay away. He visited her, though the air between them was tense. One afternoon, he found her sitting by the fountain, staring into the water. "Why are you here?" she asked softly, not looking up. "Because I don't believe in convenient truths," he said. "And your guilt looks far too convenient." Her head lifted sharply, eyes meeting his. "Do you believe me, then?" He paused, then admitted, "I want to." It wasn't a promise, but it wasn't condemnation either. For Nora, it was enough to breathe again. Behind the scenes, Daniel's digging bore fruit. He returned with a folder, dropping it on Alexander's desk. Inside were records, payments, and correspondence that tied the photographs directly to Stella Cole, the society gossip. But more damningly, Stella's account showed a direct transfer from Lily King. Alexander stared at the proof, his jaw tightening. A slow, simmering anger filled him, not at Nora, but at the woman who dared orchestrate her destruction under the guise of sisterhood. "She bought the photographs," Daniel said flatly, "and paid Stella to spread the rumors." "Your instincts were right, sir." Alexander closed the folder. "No, my instincts weren't enough. I let doubt wound someone who didn't deserve it." He stood, his decision sharp in his mind. "It's time Lily King learns what it means to play games with me." But he didn't move recklessly. Alexander was a man of strategy. He didn't simply want to confront Lily. He wanted to expose her so completely that no one could question Nora's innocence again. So he planned, quietly, carefully, and Nora, unaware of the storm Alexander was preparing, sat in her room that night with Hazel by her side, whispering the words she barely dared believe. "What if he never forgives me? What if I've already lost him?" Hazel squeezed her hand. "Then you fight. Because Lily hasn't just declared war on you. She's declared war on love itself. And love, Nora, doesn't surrender easily." Nora didn't know it yet, but Alexander's heart had already chosen its side. The only question now was how far he would go to destroy Lily's lies. Alexander had never been a man to waste words, but when it came to betrayal, silence was more dangerous than anger. He waited until the city quieted, until the gossip of the gala began to fade, and then he made his move. He summoned Lily King to his office under the guise of discussing a new charity project. She arrived radiant as ever, dressed in emerald silk, her smile confident and practiced. She believed the scandal had sealed her victory, that Alexander had finally seen Nora for the fragile shadow Lily always painted her to be. But the moment she stepped into his office, she felt it. The shift. His gaze wasn't warm or admiring. It was cold, heavy, the look of a man who already knew the truth. "Alexander," she purred, settling into the chair across from him. "You wanted to see me?" He leaned back, studying her as if she were a problem he'd already solved. "Yes. I thought it was time we had an honest conversation." Lily tilted her head, feigning innocence. "Honesty is the foundation of any good relationship." "Good," he said sharply. "Then you'll have no trouble explaining why you paid Stella Cole to circulate false photographs of your sister." The smile froze on Lily's lips. For a moment, her mask cracked, but she recovered quickly. "That's absurd. Why would I waste my time on such childish?" Alexander slid the folder across the desk. Inside lay the bank records, the correspondence, the damning evidence Daniel had uncovered. "Don't insult my intelligence. You paid her. You orchestrated it. You tried to destroy Nora in front of the entire city." Lily's chest rose and fell, her composure slipping. "And what if I did?" she snapped, her voice rising. "Do you know what it's like to grow up in her shadow? Everyone always saw Nora as the sweet one, the gentle one, the darling daughter. But she's weak, Alexander. She doesn't belong in your world. I do. I've fought for everything I've ever had, and I won't let her steal this from me." Alexander's voice cut like ice. "She didn't steal anything. I chose her, and that's what you can't accept." Her face twisted, fury mingling with desperation. "You're blind. She'll never be strong enough to stand beside you. But me?" She leaned forward, her eyes blazing. I can give you everything. Power, influence, loyalty. I would never hesitate to protect you. By destroying your own sister, he asked coldly. For the first time, Lily faltered. Her lips parted, but no words came. The silence was damning. Alexander rose to his feet, towering over her. This conversation is over. The next time you try to touch Nora or me, there won't be a private confrontation. There will be consequences. Public ones. Lily stood too, her fists clenched at her sides, her pride refusing to bow. If you think this is the end, Alexander, you underestimate me. I don't lose. He held her gaze, unflinching. Then you've never met someone who doesn't play games. For a moment, the office was charged with raw tension, two powerful wills colliding. Then Lily spun on her heel, her perfume trailing behind her like smoke. Alexander watched her leave, his jaw tight. He knew this wouldn't stop her. If anything, cornering Lily would only make her more dangerous. But he had set the stage. Now it was time to end her games once and for all. And somewhere across the city, Nora sat in her room, unaware that the man she thought doubted her had already declared war on her behalf. The night of the King Foundation's annual gala arrived, glittering with wealth, power, and whispers. It was the kind of event where reputations were polished or destroyed in a single evening. And tonight, Alexander intended to end the games for good. The ballroom glowed under crystal chandeliers. The city's most powerful figures mingled with champagne glasses in hand, their laughter sharp as diamonds. At the center of it all stood Alexander Davies, immaculate in his black tuxedo, his expression calm but unreadable. At his side was Nora King, radiant in a gown of ivory silk, her quiet strength making her shine brighter than the jewels around her. Lily King arrived late, dressed like a queen in crimson velvet, her head held high despite the storm brewing beneath her skin. She walked into the gala as if she still owned the room, as if Alexander hadn't already stripped the mask from her face. Whispers followed her like shadows. She ignored them, her gaze locked on Alexander. She was ready to reclaim her place, no matter the cost. Halfway through the evening, Alexander raised his glass and stepped onto the stage. The room fell into silence, every ear tuned to his words. Tonight, he began, his voice steady, is not only about celebrating success, but about celebrating truth. In a city built on power, truth is the rarest currency of all. Lily's smile faltered. Alexander continued, his eyes sweeping the room before resting squarely on her. Some among us believe power is gained by deceit, by betrayal, even by tearing down those we should protect. But tonight, I will not let lies stand. Gasps rippled through the crowd as screens around the ballroom flickered to life. One by one, images appeared, bank transfers, messages, forged photographs, every piece of evidence of Lily's betrayal. Her schemes laid bare for the entire world to see. The audience erupted in murmurs. Some shook their heads. Others stared at Lily with open disgust. The empire of lies she had built crumbled in seconds. Lily King, Alexander said, his voice carrying across the stunned room. You tried to destroy your sister to win what was never yours to claim. But tonight, the truth is no longer in your hands. The city sees you now for what you are. All eyes turned to her. For a moment, Lily stood frozen, fury and humiliation clashing in her veins. She wanted to scream, to fight, to claw her way back. But the evidence was undeniable. Her crown of envy shattered in front of everyone she had spent her life trying to impress. She let out a bitter laugh, her voice breaking. You think you've won, Alexander? You think Nora deserves you? You'll see, she's not strong enough. She never will be. But no one listened. The crowd was already turning away, their admiration dissolving into contempt. For the first time, Lily wasn't the center of attention. She was the scandal, the failure. Alexander descended from the stage and crossed to Nora. He took her hand in his, steady and sure, as if to tell her without words, I choose you, no matter the storm. Nora's eyes glistened, not with weakness, but with the quiet triumph of someone who had endured and finally been seen. Together, they left the stage, their path lit not by chandeliers, but by the truth. And behind them, Lily stood alone in her crimson gown, her empire reduced to ashes, her bitterness echoing in an empty room. Hi guys, I have a question to ask you all. Have you ever experienced sibling rivalry? You can tell us about it in the comment section.